What is the best time to visit Sweden? But before answering this, I just want to make sure that you want to visit Sweden and not Switzerland. Okay, good. Sweden it is. Then we can continue. So, when is the best time to visit Sweden? Depends a bit what you like and also where you are in Sweden, since it's a long country with a lot of weather variations. In this video, I will focus mostly on the Stockholm region, which is where I'm from and also where most people go to when they visit Sweden for the first time. Before we move on with this video, I really want to recommend you to learn some Swedish before coming here. Even if most Swedes understand and speak English to perfection,
no, I don't think so.
You will still get some extra points if you use some Swedish phrases and words instead, like saying tack instead of thank you, for example. If you want to study Swedish with us, then you can join our online video courses, in particular our beginner courses, where you will learn the most basic phrases in Swedish. And the good thing with our online video courses is that they are pre-recorded lessons that you can take whenever you want, wherever you are. Here's the link if you want to sign up. Moving on to when you should visit Sweden. If you ask a Swede when you should come to Sweden, most will probably say the summer. So let's talk about the pros and cons with coming in the summer. Summer is actually really nice here, and it's a great time to come if you want midnight sun, pleasantly warm summers, and if you want to spend a lot of time outdoors swimming in the lakes. The temperature between June and August can vary a bit, but it's usually around 20 Celsius degrees and quite sunny. Apart from some rainy cold days, we can also hear a lot of thunder. In my opinion, the only bad thing with coming as a tourist in summer is that many places are closed. In particular in July, the month when most Swedes take vacation. And since we have a minimum of 5 weeks vacation, a lot of people take the whole July off. If you visit very touristic places, such as Vasa Museet, then you won't have any problem. But if you go to smaller places, like local bars, restaurants and shop, they might be closed. You will also notice that the streets in bigger cities like Stockholm and Gothenburg are very empty, at least from Swedes, since most of them are in their summer houses or abroad enjoying their long vacation. So you will mostly see other tourists on the streets, at least if you come to Stockholm. Maybe if you go to Gotland instead, they will be crowded because it's a place where a lot of Stockholmers go on their vacation. So if you want to see more of the real Sweden, Swedes during rush hour, kids going to their schools, you know, the ordinary life, then I recommend you to come neither in June or August instead. More things will also happen during these months in Sweden. Let's take June for example. In the beginning of June, many students here in Sweden graduate, which turns every little city where there is a high school into a big fun party. Another benefit of coming in June is that the weather is usually very nice and you can enjoy the summer solstice to the fullest, which also means celebrating one of the biggest Swedish traditions, Midsommar. Midsommar, or midsummer in English, normally takes place between the 19th to 26th of June. Depends a bit on the year. If you want to learn more about midsummer and how to celebrate it, then you should check out this video we made about it before. The midnight sun during June is a very crazy experience. You're outside at 11 p.m. and it still looks like day. It's really awesome, to be honest. But it comes with a price, at least for those who have a hard time falling asleep if it's too bright. And Swedes aren't such a big fan of blinds. So if you belong to these people who needs completely darkness in order to fall asleep, then you shouldn't come to Sweden in June. Another negative with coming to Sweden in June is that the lakes are still a bit cold. At least if you are what we call en badkruka. Then you should come in August instead. August is a great month. It's still summer, people are back in town, and the lakes are normally the warmest. There are also a lot of things going on in August. Many fun cultural activities takes place, such as Kulturfestivalen here in Stockholm. Then we also have Pridefestivalen and many retro car shows. And most importantly, is the season of kräftskiva, which is something we like to celebrate here. And then it's also the surströmming season, for those that want to go all in the Swedish lifestyle. In general, the weather during the summers here in Sweden is quite nice. It's not too hot nor too cold. We can have some days where the temperature goes up to around 30 or 32 degrees Celsius, but there are not many. However, a lot of people suffer these days because the Swedish houses aren't really prepared for the summers, because they're prepared for the winters. For example, most Swedes don't own a fan or have air conditioning installed, so it can become very hot inside. Same thing with public transportation. I would actually avoid traveling by bus during these hot days because it gets so hot. But again, I'm a Swede and I'm not so used to tropical weather. Perhaps you are and you won't have any problem with this. I will now end the summer with a very useful summary of the things you can expect during the summer. Next season, våren, spring in Sweden. If you want to see how Sweden blossoms, both the nature and the people, after a long dark winter, then you should come during the spring. Swedes are happier than ever, and a lot of things is going on during this time of the year, like Easter celebrations and valborg. For those who don't know, valborg is an old pagan tradition where we welcome spring and celebrate the end of the winter. Valborg takes place the 31st of April. So if you're interested in learning more about Swedish pagan rituals, then you should come during this time of the year. And if you want to know more about Valborg before coming, then you can check out this video. Another nice event happening in spring is the cherry blossoms. It's not as big as in Japan, but it's still very nice. You can, for example, see it in Kungsträdgården here in Stockholm. So yeah, if you come to Sweden during spring, then you will encounter an explosion of colors and nice fragrance from all the flowers. It's beautiful. However, the spring might not be the best season to come if you're allergic to pollen. The levels of pollen are very high during this year, especially a pollen called björkpollen. It's also good to know that the weather changes a lot during spring. One day it can be really warm and then you think, yes, finally the winter is over. And then boom, the snow comes back again. April is usually the month with the most variations. We even have a word for this called aprilbakslag, which kind of means that the weather hits you in the back when you least expect it. So bring a lot of different kind of clothes if you come during this time of the year. And here comes a useful summary of Sweden during spring. Next season, winter is coming. If you like Christmas, snow, and want a high chance of seeing the northern lights, then you should come during the winter, which takes place around December to February. But bring warm clothes, because it can get very cold. The more north you go, the colder it is. In Stockholm in general, it's somewhere between -10 Celsius to 0. If you don't own a lot of warm clothes, then I would recommend you to put on many layers the first day you come here. And then go to the first secondhand shop you find here in Sweden. There are actually many. To buy some proper winter clothes. You can actually find some cheap ones. You will perhaps look like a Swede from the 80s, but it will be worth it in order to stay warm. And if you should prioritize any kind of warm clothes, then I would say that you should pick some good warm shoes. Preferably some warm boots, so the snow doesn't get in your shoes while you walk around doing all these touristy things. So what month should you visit during winter? Well, if you want to experience the Swedish way of celebrating Christmas, then you should of course come in December. We have some unique traditions such as Lucia that takes place the 13th of December. And if you want to know more about how we celebrate Lucia, Christmas and New Year's in Sweden, then you can check out these videos we made about the topic. If you prefer to stay home during Christmas, then you should come to Sweden in January or February instead. But I warn you, these months are normally the coldest ones of the year, so be prepared for that. However, even if it's cold, it might not be as cold as you might think. At least here in Stockholm. And this is mostly because we have kind of a dry climate. So you feel the cold in a different way if you compare it to a more humid climate. And also, the Swedish society is prepared for the cold. The houses have this central heating, so you can go around just wearing a t-shirt. The normal temperature inside is around 23 degrees Celsius. Actually, if you rent a flat in Sweden, then you're not allowed to have a temperature below 20 degrees Celsius. The landlord must guarantee you that. But not only the houses are prepared, also the public transportation. Some bus stops even have some kind of heating. In my personal experience, I've actually frozen more in Spain when it was 6 degrees Celsius but humid, just because the houses in Spain weren't as prepared as in Sweden for the cold. Which makes sense because they're prepared for the heat instead. Actually, most foreigners I've talked to say that the cold isn't the worst part. It is actually the darkness. Because it gets really dark and you can't do so much about it. The only thing that might help you to survive the darkness is traveling to Spain, which is what most Swedes do. Or the snow. The snow actually lights up the city a bit. So come in January or February if you want to experience the power of the snow. Another thing that also lights up the winter darkness are the northern lights. When you can actually see them is difficult to predict. But the higher up you go in Sweden, the higher chance you will have to see them. Normally they take place anytime between mid-November to mid-March. The Swedish word for northern lights is norrsken. I actually use an Norrskens app that sends me notifications when there's a high chance to see the northern lights. If you ask a Swede when is the worst time to come to Sweden, I think that most people will say February, because it's still cold and dark and all the fun with Christmas is already over and there's still a lot left until spring comes. However, there's one good thing with February, and that is Fettisdagen. Fettisdagen can be translated to the fatty day or the day of the fatties. And in preparation for Fettisdagen, we make and eat semlor. Semla is a delicious Swedish pastry with a lot of fat. It has a mountain of grädde, cream, and mandelmassa, which is kind of an almond icing. The Fettisdagen tradition started a long time ago as a preparation for the fasting that was to come the days after. And the idea was to consume a lot of calories in order to withstand the fasting. And with that, the Swedes invented semlan. If you want to know more about this bun and how it's made, then you can check out this video. So, if you want to try this semla, then you need to come in February, because it's normally the only time of the year when you can eat it. Let's now sum up the Swedish winters. Our last season is höst, our word for autumn or fall. And I think that this season is a little bit underestimated in Sweden. Because if you come during this time of the year, you will see a breathtaking nature. Trees with different colors. Gul, röd, orange, brun, and so on. There are also a lot of things going on during this time of the year. Like for example, höstmarknader, autumn markets, where you can buy fruits such as apples or vegetables such as kantareller that have been harvested during this time. But also mittens, beanies and scarves that can be useful for the colder weather that is coming. Because during fall, it gradually becomes more cold and more gray, and the days shorten rapidly, making everything a bit darker. The darkness is often solved with a lot of fire, eld, and candles, ljus. If you come to Sweden during the beginning of November, then you will experience a lot of ljusfester. There's actually a big ljusfest here in Stockholm with a lot of people gathers in a fackeltåg, walking around this lake called Brunnsviken to light up the November darkness. It's actually very cool. Back in the medieval times here in Sweden, they also did this to scare away the dark spirits. During November, we also celebrate a very important day called Alla helgons dag, All Saints' Day. It's an old tradition that still continues until today. The tradition is basically a celebration of the dead. On this day, Swedes go to cemeteries to pay their respects to the dead by lighting a candle. So if you see an abnormal amount of candles in Sweden during this day, This is why. If you're going to go on a walk on this night, after it gets dark, then you need to go to a cemetery. They're usually filled with candles and make for a beautiful, cozy view. Another alternative ljusfest here in Stockholm is the Noble Lights Week, a festival lighting up different buildings here in Stockholm. And the most important one is of course happening in Stadshuset, where we hold the Nobel Prize ceremony. However, technically these Nobel lights take place during winter because it's in the beginning of December. And talking about ljusfester and darkness, something important to have in mind if you come to Sweden during October, November and December is to plan your days ahead. At least if you want to be able to see things when it's still light outside. Like a forest, for example. Then you should go there before it gets dark and you get lost. So try to plan your outdoors activities if you come during this time of the year around 9 in the morning to 1. After that, it's better that you spend the rest of the day at a museum or at the coffee place having a fika instead. Fika is probably the most common activity that we do during this time of the year. A great way to spend those cold, dark days is actually eating something sweet, maybe chatting with our friends, or studying Swedish with Fun Swedish. You can also join our Swedish courses if you want to study Swedish with us as well. And just so you know, we have different types of courses. Live courses if you want to have Swedish lessons with a teacher a specific day and time. Online video courses that are these pre-recorded courses that you can take whenever you want, wherever you are. And we also have Swedish courses for companies. If your company and your boss wants to provide you Swedish lessons at work. Here is more information about all our courses. Moving on, a very important day during the fall is kanelbullens dag, the day of the cinnamon bun, the most popular Swedish fikabröd. And we love it so much that it even deserves its own day. Kanelbullens dag. Here's a video if you want to learn more about this bun. And we will end this season with a little summary. Now I want to know, what is your favorite season in Sweden? Is it sommar, vår, vinter eller höst? And if you don't know yet, when would you like to come to visit Sweden if you had a chance? Januari, februari, mars, april, maj, juni, juli, augusti, september, oktober, november eller December? Let me know in the comment section below and try to write the seasons and the month in Swedish. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel before you leave. Hej då, vi ses i Sverige!